Hello and welcome to the first episode of my Learn to Script from Scratch series on Roblox. And this first episode is going to be on the Roblox Studio basics, and then after that we're going to move on to actual scripting after going through a few more of the basics of Studio. But in this episode we're going to go over most of the areas of Studio in a small amount of detail, just so you understand how Studio works. So here we're on the desktop of Windows. So this is what your Windows should look like if you have Windows 7 or Windows XP or something like that. Then it's very similar process, but on Windows 10 you just want to search Roblox Studio like this, right? And then on Windows 10 you can just press enter, and this will launch Roblox Studio. So let's just wait for this to open. Okay, so it won't always be open fully, so to open it fully you're just going to double click on this top of the window like this, and now you have it full screen. You can also make it completely full screen. If you want to press F11 on your keyboard, you can make a full screen version of Roblox Studio. But because you're probably going to be switching between windows a lot, you're probably not going to want to do that. You want to keep it in this view, which is sort of a in-between full screen and usability, so you can switch between windows a lot. So in the top right here it should say logged in as whatever your username is. If it doesn't say that, then it's a very simple process. You just click sign in and you sign in with your Roblox account. So here we've got a lot of things. So what these are different templates you can start off with. So if you want to start your game from nothing, you can start with a base plate. And what a base plate is just a big brick in the middle of your place, which you can delete and start your game completely from scratch. Or you can build from the base plate and up like that, and then script the stuff you build, etc. And then you just got terrain, which is smooth terrain. You should probably already know what that is, but we're not going to be going in depth with that in this series because it's not really scripting. Then we've got some templates here. So these are all templates made by Roblox, and if you want to learn to build, and I might be making a tutorial on that, a tutorial series on that soon, then you can look at these and look how they're built, just to help you understand how these are done. And some of these also contain scripting, such as this place has some scripting in it as well, so you can analyze the scripts in that if you're wondering how to do things. One of the best ways to start to learn scripting in Roblox is to look at other people's scripts. But when I started scripting, I basically took people's scripts and I took bits of them, bits of one script and bits of another script, and then put them together, and if they worked I would learn something from it. And then over time I've just learned to do everything myself, which is a lot better than using other people's scripts, because you can customize it as much as you want. So for this tutorial we're going to be using a base plate. Since we're not actually going to be building anything or making any scripts, this is fine because it's just the Studio basics. So this is what your Studio should look like by default. You can customize it as much as you want. You can cross things off like so. I'll just bring that back and like this. So you can just cross things off like that if you want to. You can move this thing at the top up, so you can just have a completely 3D view. And if you want to add things or get something back that you've accidentally deleted, you just go to View up here, and then you click on each thing you want to bring back. So I've got the Explorer, Properties, the Toolbox, and this is the start page, so this is a tab at the top here, which is the start page. So if I unclick this, it will go away, and if I click it again, it will come back. So when Studio opens, this is the first page you'll see, and this will show you all of your places as well. I didn't go through that a second ago, sorry. Right, so if you just want to switch between places, you can do like this. Okay, so the main things you're definitely always going to want to have open are the Explorer panel and the Properties panel. Those are the main things you're going to want to have open. And when you're scripting, you're always going to want to have this, what's it called, the command bar open, because this is where you can run short commands. Okay. So I was going to type something in there, but I don't want to confuse anyone, so I'm not going to do that yet. So the toolbox is something you can have open, but it's not very important. You don't have to have this open. What the toolbox will do is let you have access to Roblox models. And obviously models are things made by other people, and they can be very useful for making your building place and stuff like that. If you want to make a building place with some models and some of your own building to start with, that's fine because maybe you're not that great at buildings to start with. So, for example, I could use trees and then build everything else myself in my place. But in this tutorial, I'm not going to be going through models. You can also get scripts here. So say I wanted a script to change the day and to make a day and night cycle in my place. I can just search day/night script here, and there'll be one there available for me. And similarly, if I was wanting to make a day and night script that would make a day and night cycle, but I wanted to make it myself, and I didn't know how to do that, I could search in this box day and night cycle, and then look at all the scripts, look at a few scripts because some of them will be different to other ones, and then you can just find the most efficient way of doing it and make the script yourself. So you can customize the script as much as you want. And when you're starting out, it's a good idea to take bits from some scripts and put them in other scripts. But we'll go through more of that in later tutorials. So in this tutorial, we're going to be going over the actual Roblox Studio itself. And this isn't going to only be to do with scripting. This is going to be to do with building and scripting, because with scripting you might want to sometimes do 3D scripting, so you might want to open a door or make something move, etc., which will require building, sort of. So the most important things in Studio are probably the Explorer and the properties. So what the Explorer is it's a panel to show you everything in your game. So you've got all of these services, and there are much more services as well, which we'll come across later on in the tutorials. But these are all the services you can use, and you can change the properties of. And this is the properties panel here. So if you just click on one of these services, you'll get properties of the services. And we don't need to see what the properties are at the moment. But these are all, as you can see here, you've got some things that you can customize in each one of them. For an example, let's go to lighting. So lighting manages all of the sky, the sun, the time, the ambient outside, the fog. It manages all of that stuff. The time, as I said the time before, and the brightness of the place. And you can enable and disable shadows and stuff like that, right? So as an example, we're just going to change some properties over here of the lighting service, right? So to do that, we're just going to click on lighting, just like this, and this should automatically pop up. If this doesn't pop up, if you haven't got a properties panel, then as I said before, you just go to view and you click properties and it will open the panel for you. So you just want to, as I said, go to lighting, and I'm just going to show changing of the properties. This should be reasonably self-explanatory, but to anyone who can't see how to use this, literally, if I wanted to change the fog, which is by default a very high number, which means there's basically no fog, I could change this to 500, and as you can see, I've got a sort of fog around here. And I can lower this down to say 200, and the lower it gets, the more fog there is. But then if I want to make it back to nothing, I just make a very high number, it'll go away. So that's properties, and we're going to be going over properties later because they're a very important part of scripting and of building. And properties can be edited through scripts and through the command bar and manually by you in Studio. So here we've got some services, and the services we're going to be covering in this series are probably replicated first, replicated storage, server script service, server storage, starter GUI, you can say starter GUI or starter GUI, I like to say GUI, starter pack, and we may cover chat in part of it, but it's unlikely. And probably the most important part we're going to be covering is workspace, and we'll also be covering players and lighting. So the workspace is everything in your game that's visible by the player. So if I put a part, and to do that you just go home, sorry, not home, you go, yeah, you do home, sorry, you go home, and then here it says part, so you can just click part, and now you have a part in your Roblox place. And you can click this part and move it around with the mouse. If you hold down the mouse while moving this around, you can move the part around. And as you can see here, we've got this part in the workspace. And if you click the part, you can see we've got a blue outline on the part, a selection box. And that's because we're selecting the part. The same thing happens if we select the base plate. So click the base plate, and if I go to the side of the base plate here, you can see it's got a blue outline on it. That's because we've selected it. And if you want to make them more identifiable to you or to scripts, then you can change the name of it by right-clicking it and then clicking rename. So if I wanted to change this to tutorial part, like that, right? Now this part is called tutorial part, and I can move around just like normal, but I could also do the same thing if I click on this and I go to the properties, just like before, and we scroll down to where it says, under data, it says name, and here it says on the right, the name of the thing. So if I click that, and then press backspace on my keyboard, I can change the name of it to whatever I want. So I'll just change it to part tutorial. I spelled tutorial wrong. Okay, so that's properties and the workspace and 3D objects. So now we're going to look at controlling the camera in Studio, as I'm doing right now and as I've been doing for the last few minutes. So the main controls we're going to be using are just like any game, and any Roblox game, really, and almost any actual game that you'll play outside of Roblox. I mean, Roblox games are actual games, but any games outside of Roblox will use the same controls. So they are W, A, S, and D, right? And they're used exactly the same as you would use them in a game. You can also use the same thing. You can also use the arrow keys in exactly the same way as the W, A, S, D keys, just like you can do in any other game. So the W key acts as forwards. So if I hold down the W key, you can see I move forwards. The S key acts as backwards. So if I hold down the S key, I go backwards. The D key acts as right. So if I hold down the D key, I go right. And the A key acts as left. So if I hold down A, I go left. And it's exactly the same with the arrow keys, apart from it's a bit more self-explanatory. So the forward arrow key makes you go forward. The backward arrow key makes you go backwards. And the right arrow key makes you go right. The left arrow key makes you go left. So it's that simple. But the problem here is you can't actually move where your camera is, the rotation of your camera. You can just go forwards and backwards and to the sides. So to do that, you're going to want to take your mouse, and you can move around like this. But if you hold down the right mouse button, and then you move your mouse around, you can move your mouse just like this. And if you use them at the same time as the arrow keys, or the WASD keys, you can do stuff like look around your place pretty easily. So you'll get the hang of this quite fast. If you just build some things, then you'll slowly get the hang of this. I've been doing Roblox for a long time, so it's quite, it's normal. It's a habit for me to do this properly. You'll learn it pretty fast. So that's a lot of the studio done. So we're pretty close to the end of the tutorial now. So if you wanted to add parts into the game, I've already shown you how to add one normal shaped part, but if you wanted to add something like cylinders or wedges or spheres, then that's quite easy too. So if you go here, back to where we were before with the part on the home tab, and you go to this little arrow underneath part, then you have a selection of different objects you can use. In this one we're going to use a sphere, and as you can see we've got a sphere, and you can move it just like the part we had before. You can also get a wedge, and you can do exactly the same thing. And then you've got a cylinder, and you can do exactly the same thing as here as well. So it's great being able to move the parts around, but how do you, let's say, resize the parts? Well, up here on the home tab, just like before, we've got these four controls here, right? So we've got select, which is what we're on right now, and that means you can hold down your mouse on the part and you can move it around. But we've also got move, scale, and rotate. So if I click this cylinder here, and I click move, it gives me some arrows, and all these arrows face in different directions. And if I hold down my left click mouse on one of them and move it upwards, or in the direction of the arrows facing, it will move it towards that direction. So I can move this any direction I want, like this, and it will keep it in a straight line in that direction, unlike select, which will just move it to exactly where your mouse is. So that's useful for just moving parts around, and you want to keep them in a straight line. And then we've also got scale, which is basically a resize tool. So it's exactly the same as the move tool, but instead of moving the part in the direction you drag your mouse, it instead resizes the object in the direction you move your mouse. So if I wanted to make it go slightly longer, I can just move this to the side and it will make the part longer. And if I want to make it taller, I can do the same here. But since it's a cylinder, to make it the right size, obviously because you can't, it doesn't want to distort the cylinder. If I move this part as well, it will resize the part. But if I use something like the wedge, it will move it, it will resize it as I do it. And you might notice there's only 4 circles here, but there is actually a little green thing here, because the reason it's a green thing is because this ground is covering it up. So if I click this again, I can still use this green thing, but I just have to use it. Use exactly the same as these circles. It's just that you can't see the circle part. So you've got all the different directions of resizing. It's that simple. So there's one more thing that you want to do, and that's rotating. So you can do that by going to rotate here, and then you can rotate it by a small increment. I think it's 45 degrees every single time. Or if you want to rotate it manually through your keyboard, which is sometimes a lot faster, if you just press R on your keyboard, it will rotate it by 90 degrees. So if I just press R a few times, as you can see, this wedge moves around. And I can do the same with the cylinder, and the same with the sphere, but you might not see it on the sphere. Yeah, you won't see it on the sphere because obviously the sphere is the same from every angle. So I think that's every Studio Basics, apart from you can do 2 things that are very important, probably 3 actually. If I want to select multiple parts, I can just hold down my mouse and drag. It will select the parts like this, right? And there's another thing as well. If I want to change the material of the part, I just go to this thing here on the Home tab again, and there's an arrow under the material, and I can just change it to any of these materials I want. So if I want to make it pebbles, it will do that. And then we've also got, back to properties again, the color of the parts. So we can do that by going brick color, and click on this and choose a color here, and as you can see, it updates live, so we can see what it will look like before we even choose the color. So if I make it persimmon, or I'll make it black because that's probably a better known color. So now we've got these parts. If I wanted to go into the game and see what it would be like with these parts in the game, I can just click play, and it will spawn me into the game so I can test out these parts. So these parts are loose, so I can push this sphere around, I can jump on this and it might move, oh well not, but I can push this along, etc. And so that's basically the basics of Studio. I'll just quickly go over models. So models act very similarly to parts. So if I wanted to put a tree in my place, I could just search tree here, or on the home page there's a lot of models that you can use, but if I just search tree here, then I can hold down left click on here and drag it into my game like that, see? And then I move it around just like a part, and then I have a tree in my game. And I can duplicate that tree by clicking it and pressing Control D, and then I get another tree, and I can do the same with that. So that's the basics of Roblox Studio. The next episode will be more scripting related, but we won't get into scripting until about the 3rd or 4th episode, actual code. But I think it's important to cover all this stuff before we do the scripting, so as not to get ahead of ourselves. So thanks for watching. I'll try and keep these videos as short as possible. I know this video was quite long, but leave a like and subscribe because I'm a new channel and I'd really like the support. So thanks for watching, and bye.